Episode 1, The Topological Triangle Theory. The minimum unit of sciable speech. Ludwig Wittgenstein, student of Nobel Prize-winning mathematician Bertrand Russell. He treated philosophy with even greater rigor than his master, approaching it like mathematics. He completely formalized the relationship between language and the world. He sought to transform philosophy with mathematical precision. He analyzed propositions into symbols and dissected sentences into logical structures. He tried to turn all language into mathematical formulas. And at the end of that vast mathematical system, he arrived at his conclusion: whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. This wasn't an improvised maxim. It was the result of rigorous mathematical logic. Having built the house of language brick by brick like mathematical formulas, the final door he discovered was silence. Wittgenstein's silence wasn't mere philosophical humility. It was the final conclusion of a mathematical experiment called the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. After he declared silence, philosophy stopped. Philosophy that had followed logic, symbols, and mathematical rigor finally came to a halt before what language could not reach. Heidegger responded from the outside, calling for being. But ultimately, the two were playing the same ball back and forth. The boundaries of language and the calling of being. For 100 years, they passed the philosophical ping-pong ball between them. But now we ask, was that really the end of philosophy? Was silence the only answer? Wittgenstein discarded the unsayable. But within that speech, we can discover a new starting point for philosophy. That starting point is precisely this finding: the minimum unit of sayable speech. Chapter 1. Small-scale conceptual existence. Wittgenstein and Heidegger. The two giants of 20th century philosophy spoke different languages. Wittgenstein dealt with logic and symbols. Heidegger dealt with being and Dasein. On the surface, these two paths appear completely different. However, if we look deeply into their debate, they were actually playing with the same ball. That ball was small-scale conceptual existence. Wittgenstein said that the limits of language are the limits of the world. He analyzed propositions into symbols, trying to find the minimum unit that language could express. In other words, he pushed to the very end of sciable speech. Heidegger was different. He tried to grasp what cannot be reduced to language, being itself. But his being, too, ultimately had to be thought and expressed through language. In the end, while negating each other, both were exchanging the same thing: what can be expressed in language but never fully grasped. What can be spoken of as being but ultimately meets silence. This is precisely small-scale conceptual existence. This small unit is caught within the framework of language. It can be expressed but not explained. It can be grasped but not possessed. This unit was the ping-pong ball that Wittgenstein's logic and Heidegger's being endlessly volleyed back and forth. For 100 years, philosophy played an endless ping-pong game with this small unit: language and being, propositions and Dasein. They called it by different names but circled the same point. But this ping-pong never ended, because neither of them could ultimately capture the minimum unit of sayable speech. We now propose a new departure, defining small-scale conceptual existence as the concrete reality of organism. Being is not an abstract concept, but reveals itself only as a living organism. The unit that cannot be reduced to language actually exists in the form of life. Philosophy must now move beyond abstract wordplay and restart from organism as the minimum unit. Only from that position can we transcend Wittgenstein's silence and Heidegger's being. Small-scale conceptual existence. That is precisely the organism. Chapter 2. Discovery of the minimum unit. Wittgenstein pushed the limits of language with mathematical symbols. Heidegger cried out for being beyond language. But what they ultimately failed to grasp was the minimum unit of sayable speech. We can define that minimum unit as follows. Being is not abstraction, but organism. We usually speak of existence conceptually. Chairs, trees, stars, humans. We attach the word being and establish categories within it. But being is not confined within concepts. Being reveals itself as a living body. Only where the heart beats, breath flows, and wounds occur does being become real. organism. The next issue is pain. When is being most powerfully revealed? Precisely in moments of pain. Pain occurs before language. Before we say it hurts, the body already feels the pain. A child's crying, the scream of injury, groaning sounds. These are pre-linguistic phenomena. Language follows afterward. Saying it hurts doesn't express pain. It only belatedly captures pain that has already occurred. Pain precedes language. Language is merely a byproduct of pain. Philosophers tried to explain pain through language. Kant deferred pain to categories of sensation. Hegel erased pain as a process of history. Nietzsche transformed pain into power, but he too tried to confine pain within language. But the truth is, simple pain already occurs before language. Language can never contain the source of pain. Now we have gained two things. First, the minimum unit of being is organism. Second, pain occurs before language. When these two meet, philosophy gains an entirely different landscape. Philosophy must start not from abstract propositions, but from living organisms and their pain. But here another phenomenon occurs. When pain arises, a new flow appears in that gap. When order shakes and cracks appear, the world tries to reorganize itself. The first physical phenomenon that occurs then is precisely entropy. Now we see the third vertex of the topological triangle being is organism. Pain precedes language, and entropy is the first physical phenomenon that emerges from that gap. Chapter 3. Entropy. The first physical phenomenon after pain. Pain is not merely sensation. Pain is an event that reveals the world's fractures. When we feel pain, the order of body and mind shakes simultaneously. The balance usually maintained collapses, demanding new order. Right in that gap, entropy begins. Entropy is often translated as disorder, but more precisely, entropy is the first flow that occurs where order has collapsed. In physics, entropy is explained as heat dispersion, energy loss, the process of order scattering. However, what's important here is that entropy is not simply extinction, but the condition for change. When pain occurs, the organism can no longer maintain its previous balance. Order collapses, and new movement becomes necessary. The first physical phenomenon that appears at that moment is entropy. For example, consider this. When you burn your hand, pain occurs immediately. That pain is not mere sensation. It breaks the order of the entire body, and cells and nervous systems respond in new ways. Signals spread, energy disperses, and the body tries to find balance again within that fracture. This flow is precisely how entropy operates. Entropy cannot be separated from pain. If pain doesn't occur, entropy doesn't reveal itself. Pain is the fracture of existence, and entropy is the first physical phenomenon occurring within that fracture. In the history of philosophy, almost no one has addressed this point. Philosophers conceptualized pain, but failed to see that pain connects with the world's physical flows. Wittgenstein remained silent. Heidegger called for being, but none of them clearly revealed the combination of pain and entropy. Now we have gained three vertices. Being is organism. Pain occurs before language, and entropy is the first physical phenomenon after pain. When these three vertices connect, one figure emerges. That is precisely the topological triangle. The topological triangle is not mere metaphor. It binds existence, language, pain, and even physics entropy into one structure. It shows that pain, which philosophy avoided and hid, now directly connects with physical reality. The topological triangle pulls philosophy out of silence and places it on a new map.